Vocabio. Master English your way.
If they don't do it and they don't adapt, the system is not going to be as powerful or will enable.
Intelligent. How well adapted are our bodies to our brains? Could they be better than they are?
Adapt your definition of this highly mobile sort of
in knowing how to adapt to this change, because it's
greenwashing or trying to adapt a story from the global north.
Thought that Islamists were going to overtake India, and it was so visible.
China's going to overtake the world. I would recommend a brilliant book by the Swedish.
This machine is going to overtake us and spit us out because we're irrelevant.
Horrible event. Mob overtaking the government, but it was also and
then obviously events they don't overtake it. In fact, they're quite the opposite. They make it sort of more pressing.
Of death around, the atmosphere being surrounded by death and feeling trapped in it and making
histories that were surrounding human existence. The first one,
the neighborhood, they got to grab their gun and they surrounded this house. And Martin,
you're infusing and surrounding everything you do with emotion.
For example, in places like Mariupol and surrounding places, Kherson, is what the Russians are trying to do is
decent stunt for telly. It was very tempting, and I was glad that I didn't give in to my worst instincts in that moment.
Much more quickly, and while it's tempting to say that, I actually don't buy that. I think that
you are you're tempted to consider as exceptions to
that I'll explore in the next few minutes. I'm tempted to start and finish my argument right here with one.
I'm more tempted by them. I actually.
And his book, Thinking Fast and Slow, I couldn't recommend it more highly, but that there's two different thinking styles. So one...
Read Caroline's book. I would strongly, strongly recommend it. It's a very, very beautiful book. It's beautifully written.
I've got it around somewhere, but anyway, I'd recommend people taking a look at it, looking at disinformation surrounding...
They're off the tourist trail, but spectacular and highly recommended to anyone who wants to see fine 18th century...
Cast. Both the book and audiobook are great. I highly recommend it. If you would like to support,
which allows it to unlock X, Y, Z. Some of the information
are reliably good. Why is that? Well, if you're diversity and you can unlock the potential without paying the cost, then you do very well. But
which I think is going to actually unlock a lot of renewable energy that's available in the world.
Also,
he's the author of Why We Remember, Unlocking Memory's Power to Hold On to What Matters.
That it had found itself in. And what unlocked it was a citizens' assembly, which prepared the...
So we teach people how to apply these design approaches to designing not a product, but they're...
Talk about it, discuss it, apply science to it, and, really sort of...
Simply taken on and applied to other countries where...
The rest of the United States. We should apply that same sort of reasoning to people in the future as well, because...
It's a basic sort of fascist area and ideology, but applied to Russia. So Holy Russia with a sort of heavy admixture.
Senses, but you look at what people expect for the second half of this year, slowing down again.
Whatever you want. And the guy says, wow, I didn't expect this when I died. I thought I was a bad person. And says, yeah.
Where that's happened, where people have expected things to be received in a certain way. They have
maybe the most precious commodity in the world. I expect that by the end of this decade.
However, in return, we will expect you to kick a certain amount of your profits
out for what it is.
Have you managed to engage with schools on that journey?
Welfare system and the welfare state. And we managed to keep taxes down for that whole...
And both of you have managed to find a way through a system that is not designed...
in funding of the Social Democrats and Christian Democrats, and managed to kind of defeat the communists at the ballot box.
As juggling incompatible roles, managing my own ignorances, choosing between lesser evils, and reinforcing...
I want to come to because it's related to this, about the role of a constituency MP, because we kind of...
And you have to talk about disease-related factors, things like volume of the disease, timing of metastatic disease.
I see two different but related chronic problems.
So I can only describe it as it relates to kind of my own experience, but I've been in the AI field.
Influence us to engage in certain behaviors that are relevant to the actions that they have.
He alleged monstrously that I had interrupted Ken 34 times.
Magically got rid of everybody else.
Can I just interrupt quickly, because it's not relevant to your main point, but
Bindle, again, I'm only appearing to interrupt when people go over the 6-minute mark.
Your creativity, actually. Certainly Turing.
No conceivable debate theory I can imagine. Interrupt and insult the moderator.
Like 500,000 decoded pieces of DNA. So there are many advantages.
And I would send that picture to ChatGPT and I would say, decode this for me. I was just walking loops.
Science journalist and the author of many books, including Decoding the Heavens and The Shadow and the Cure.
Better and better can actually be deciphered and decoded. So as you're thinking, what is needed?
A short equation that, for the first time, decoded these patterns showing where atoms are inside a crystal.
Election, which gave us a chance to rewrite a few sentences, add a few paragraphs here and there to acknowledge that Trump...
break, actually to kind of rewrite history. What the Tories have done incredibly well is
denial of truth and manipulation and rewriting of the past. These are textbook.
God, we've got a big majority. Let's try and rewrite the script. I think that would have been a real mistake.
To completely rewrite everything we've been taught about spending, saving.
Get it wrong, then you're not displaying empathy.
Because it would have been difficult for them to have displayed those sentiments.
Oh, definitely,
yes. And I've touched...
You had local artists displaying these really like off-the-wall works and this DIY stuff, this stuff.
Semicolon. But he never displayed any enthusiasm at this prospect.
They still do this claw-waving display and hope that the opponent...
Yeah, I mean, you talk about it as misunderstanding, and I'm sure there's a lot of that. I worry that it could be something even worse.
So, to conclude, do political leaders misunderstand how to get the most from sanctions regimes? And
there's also a misunderstanding which explains why people have paid less attention to it. The misunderstanding is the
all real-world presence, and everyone was misunderstanding them because radical small real-world presence, and everyone was misunderstanding them because radical
racism drew me into politics. I got involved in a whole host of campaigns.
Good player on the scene and very involved. I think the first time I met you was bread making, actually. So you've been in.
And then we're going to open up for all of you to get involved as well. Please do warm up all of your questions and start putting them into the chat.
Do justice to anything involving
I think that's just pathetic. That idea.
Prediction systems, these kind of things all involve fluid dynamics calculations. But again, if you look at some.
So then it gets very complicated because they've accused him of stealing the money, they've accused him of losing the money.
And effectively they have their content stolen, and I'm sure that, you two are both journalists.
A gun put to my head and all my stuff stolen, and I've never been massively inclined.
I don't even know their names because we stole them and gave them comedy names out of Shakespeare. Like
of young, working-age Africans stolen from the continent at the lowest.
One of the first cases of sort of corporate rebranding, they rename it the Red Dragon to make it sound slightly less offensive.
Because that name was thrust on him. He renamed himself Augustus Thompson, who was
a foreign affairs spokesman, who renamed himself Mohammed, somewhat bizarrely, while he was working as a
craft skill. David Kelly renamed it design thinking about 15 years ago.
And then it gets digested again and recycled back and renamed into everything. And so
around that and still construct a patriotic narrative.
Well, I think the slightly provocative.
I probably wouldn't. I mean, you'd have
you'd have to construct. I can't. What's
Scottish independence for the investments necessary to construct the GB, Great Britain.
It's about trying to construct narratives very consciously. That, and you know, all of my work is
and emerging from a colonial construct. I'm troubled by that because
So we essentially need to scrape together different public databases and go.
And they allow the urchin to scrape at the reef. So
everything you've ever written has been scraped by a bot.
Is there such a thing? This
body, I can see no reason why we should bow and scrape, which is what we do. No matter how we bow and scrape to
complexities will slowly come back, but it doesn't mean it's worth scraping the barnacles off the hull, even if the barnacles do eventually come.
Vocabio, available in Google Play. Download, discover, improve your English.